Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Coffee and Clarks. I'm Javian.
And I'm Tyler. And today we have a really special guest. We have Alphonso Horne, trumpet player, educator, composer, arranger, a great human being. What else can I say? He's an active freelancer in New York City. He's played with Alan Stone, Jazz at Lincoln Center, the late night show with Stephen Colbert with Jon Batiste. He's done Broadway. He's a graduate of Florida State University, which is where JV and I know him. And he also graduated from Juilliard. So please, round of applause for Alphonso Horne. Alphonso, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
so much
Thank you,
for
sir.
having me. It's so good to see y'all. I'm so fortunate to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So before we kind of jump into our questions that we have for you today, Tyler and I, we kind of like to start off each show with something that we think is so important, which is coffee. So let me ask you, Tyler, are you drinking any coffee today?
So I had some this morning, but because it's in the afternoon, I like to, taper off my caffeine intake. So I'm actually drinking some decaf tea right now. So a little chai tea, decaf. So the way I do it, I put it in the French press. I let it steep in that and then press it down. And yeah, a little technique there. Measure it out, that kind of thing.
That's
But
fancy. That's real fancy.
hey, best of both worlds. That way, if you want something to kind of calm you down in the evening. So yeah, no coffee right now, but tea. What about you?
Well, it doesn't really matter what time of the day it is for me. I'm drinking coffee. I'm drinking it's medium roast by Perks Coffee, which is out of Savannah, Georgia. This is their Honduras blend. It's a medium blend. So that's what I'm drinking today. I went with a small dose, just like a half a cup since it is the afternoon. This is how I taper off rather than
Okay.
so yeah, that's what I'm drinking today. I did a pour over, standard. So so getting putting my Chemex to some good use these days, as much as possible. So yeah, that's what I'm drinking. Fonzo, do you drink? I don't know. Are you a coffee drinker or are you a tea drinker or?
Yeah, definitely tea. I've tried. You would think because when before the quarantine, I was like really, really busy and not sleeping much. So you would think I would drink a lot of coffee, but I don't like it, or I get really jittery. I get really jittery,
Okay.
and like I have a really bad response to it. Now every now and then I'll have like an espresso or something like that because it's just a quick shot, and I'm like, woo, let's go. Or like espresso beans, like I'll snack on that, or energy like the B12 gummies, or yerba mate is like my thing. I love yerba mate, the little drinks. So I just have, well, I have this cute cup. I'm trying. It was a gift.
That is cute.
It was a Christmas gift. So I have this cute cup, and I'm just drinking some green juice right now. So
Nice.
I had a late night last night. So
Fair enough. All right. Well, that's our coffee talk for today. Very unique.
Yeah, very unique. So question for you.
Yeah.
So what gave you the drive to invest your time and effort into your craft? How did that get started? And it seems like my time around you've always been very internally motivated. So like what sparked that?
I have to give a shout out to my upbringing, the way that I was raised. I was raised spiritually, and and that was something that I think for me I always had a personal connection to the divine, whatever you want to call it, to the universe, to God, whatever. And so I always was asking myself, the deeper questions, always reflecting. And one of my favorite mantras that I love telling people is like, if you feed the passion will feed you. And so whatever that is, and so for me, and like like that's what we're all discovering during this time, is that we're that we have to look at ourselves more than just musicians. Not just music and playing for people. What else are you interested in? What is like your full passion? Like, look at your body as an instrument. That's the way I like to see it, is that my body is an instrument, meaning that I love to dance, I love yoga, I love theater, I love to sing, and I love the trumpet. but the trumpet is an expression of who I am, and it's only one aspect. And there, like I was, there was a, I hung out with Herbie Hancock for Ron Carter's 75th birthday. We did like a special presentation at Juilliard, and yeah, I'll tell this story too. But but in backstage, he was just like, everybody knows me as Herbie Hancock, the musician, blah 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 blah. But to my kids, I'm a father. To my mother, I'm a son. I'm all of these different things. I'm not just Herbie Hancock, the musician. There's so many other roles that I play in my life.
Yeah.
And I'll just give this side story because I think it's really funny that when they asked me to write an arrangement of one of Ron Carter's pieces. And so at that time, I didn't know better. Like I wrote 6-7 page arrangement. I'm trying to go in. So and, like with older musicians, you gotta it needs to be in and out. 1 page, 2 pages, that's it. Lead sheet. Hello. But I wrote this intricate arrangement, and he's like, and he's like, "What do you mean by this chord?" Like it was like whatever, I forget whatever chord. It was some crazy chord, and so I went to the piano, and I was like, "Oh, I was thinking about this voicing." And then I got called into the office. It's like, "Oh, I heard you were showing Herbie Hancock how to play the piano." I was like,
Oh.
I was like, no, I was just, he asked me what I was thinking, and I just wanted to plug out the
Good.
He's like, no, well, that's what we heard. I was like, oh my God, no. Anyway,
That's awesome.
dude, I do not know if I answered your question. Sorry.
No,
Yeah. I
That's
mean, that sums it up right there. I mean, your upbringing in that deeper spiritual sense. I mean, I feel like that. I mean, Jamie and I talk about it, the why, like why we do things. And if your why is strong enough, it'll carry you through different seasons of your life. And so whatever season you're in, whether it was like middle school, high school, undergrad, graduate school, getting started in
Well,
like freelancing in your career, I mean, it seems like you've always have, I mean, that why can surely change over time and adapt. But if it's strong enough to keep you going, like sometimes you don't second guess. Like you understand, like you said, this is just part of you. It's not all of you. It's an aspect of who you are.
Exactly. Well, I mean, and and it's a good story to tell of like how I started out playing was with my father. My father is a musician, and as I was saying that like I had other interests. I wanted to be dancing and doing theater and stuff like that, like more musical theater type of stuff. And my dad showed me how to play the trumpet. He doesn't play trumpet as a profession, but he used to play trumpet in high school. And he's mainly a blues pianist and singer. And yeah, and he worked with Jim. Like Jim worked at Pro Music. I don't know if you remember Pro Music in Jacksonville.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, but my dad fixed instruments and worked at Pro Music, and Jim was there for a while too. But he took me. That was my first experience in gigging and all that whole lifestyle. I mean, there were places that I shouldn't have gone to at the age of 13. But my dad showed me the road life very early. But I think for me, the moment that I was like, okay, music is like what I want to do. Obviously, I was passionate, like in what we're it's like I'm a passionate person. Y'all are passionate people too. You know what I mean? But like whatever I choose to do, I'm very indecisive. But when I choose to do it, I like to go in and like do the thing. But it was for me. My moment was in college at FSU, and during the summer, I needed some bread. I needed money, obviously, and I worked. I worked for Cutco. Y'all remember Cutco, the knife company?
The knife.
Yeah. And there were aspects about it that I love, like because I love like meeting new people and getting to know people. So I love that part, like just knocking on people's doors and saying, "Hey, what's up?" But I mean, imagine that like now, like Cutco's out of business, I suppose. But anyway, I did that, but I hated the corporate vibe. I hated the like pyramid scheme, that whole thing. And then the other job that I had was like working for a dentist office. And they were friends of ours, of like family friends, and I had fun with them, but like the actual gig was like, no fun, and and that was my moment where I was like, oh, let me figure out what my passions are, and my passion is music, and like let me put as much energy, let me feed this passion so that it can come back to me. And I was like, I knew from then on that I had to like have a career in music. And I'm like, and I feel like we're all so lucky to have a career in the creative arts, because most people have to do jobs like that, are jobs that they hate to do, to make money, to survive. And I feel very blessed and very grateful to just be making a living out of something that I love, and to be given that opportunity, but yeah, anybody young looking at this, anybody who's trying to figure out what they do, it's like really figure out what your passion is, and what you love to do, and just do that, and it'll come back to you. And everything, like all your passions, not just whatever one specific thing. Because like when you go to college, it's like, oh, I am a classical player, I'm a jazz player, I'm ba 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 ba. But like I think once you get out of that system, it's like you realize, oh, like for me, for instance, like I who knew that passion for theater would come back, but like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of my work now is involved with theatrical projects and stuff like that. So just being honest about where you are, and what your passions are, and where and how you want to feed them. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
Awesome. That's great,
No,
man.
that's great. That makes absolutely good sense. I mean, like Tyler said, we talk about that all the time.
hmm
Feeding the person, not just the trumpet player, and
Yeah.
and being well rounded, and
hmm
having those interests outside of music. You're more than just a trumpet player. So that's absolutely true.
hmm
So here's another question for you. Who's been your biggest influence over the years? I know you talked about your dad and getting you started, but anybody else outside of that?
Oh, can I give a couple people?
Oh, absolutely. You can go as many as you want.
Okay, cool. So, I would say a big transition for me was actually Lord Hill. I not current, not Miss Hill. Okay, not the current Lord, but for me, the moment in Lauren's career that changed my life was the MTV Unplugged.
Oh yeah, all guitar. I
Uh,
love that
and
album.
yeah, and listening to her, well, one, she's like one of the best lyricists ever, but listening to like what she said,
Hmm.
and that's what made me get in touch with like who I am as a person. Like, well, like one of her lines, my favorite lines is like the real you is better than the fake somebody else, and
Hmm.
so she was talking about her career, all these people that like, 20 people behind her pushing her up to be the Lauren Hill, and she's like, she forgot who she was in that process, and so even that day for MTV Unplugged, her throat is
Hmm.
raspy, it's not the best we've ever heard her play, and she's like, yeah, I was sick coming into this, and I was like going back and forth, should I do this, but like I rather show my authentic self and show where I am and be truthful and honest, and that was like the first time that I looked at life from that kind of perspective. This was like what I was like 17 or 18 at the time. And so I was like, oh, you got to look good, you got to be fly, you got to like it's all about a presentation. And for me, like even then, like, around the band kids, I was like whatever, that type of Fonz, but then around church I was that type of Fonz, and then around the family I was a different type of person around people. And so instead, it was the first time that I started to ask the deeper question of who is the real me, who is that, and I have to thank Lauren Hill for that. So Lauren Hill is one of those people. Then Marcus Roberts is definitely up there. I mean Jim too. I'll give a shout out to Jim, because Jim was, the very first person that really taught me the meaning of discipline and in fundamentals, like and how it applies in all areas of life, though. Like, obviously it was with trumpet, like these are the building blocks of trumpet. For him it was, sound, flexibility, articulation, finger dexterity, scales, and stuff like that, and understanding the building blocks, the fundamentals of trumpet. But then, as you do that, you build that kind of discipline. But then you think about that for life. What are the fundamentals of life? What are my big values? Or anything that you're learning, like if you're learning how to bike, if you're learning how to dance, whatever it is, that like what are the fundamentals and really getting down to the bare bones of that. And so like, my roommates make fun of me all the time because every time I pick up the trumpet, it's either low tones or I'm buzzing or free buzzing. They're like, when are you gonna play a song? Like, and I'm like, for me, it's just like I can just do an hour long tones and then I'm ready for the gig or whatever. I mean, that's changed my schedule. Obviously my routine has changed over time, and we can talk about that if there's time. But like for me, it was like understanding, like I said, with him, like the fundamentals and the discipline, and putting that in every area of my life. I learned that from Jim. And Marcus Roberts, for me, he was another person that like taught me about feet and the passion and all that kind of stuff, because that I love this story too with him. Is that my first lesson with him, he asked me, what do you want to do? I was like, well, I was expecting you to tell me what I need to work on, and I'll come back next week and have that together for you. He was like, no, do not come into my office ever again until you know what you want to do with your life. And so the next week I like wrote out a 5-year plan of what I
Nice.
wanted to do. Well, actually, what I really did, I'll tell you the truth, that what I actually did was ask myself when I'm on the deathbed what I want to look back on.
Mm.
um and that's what I tell like my students too. It's like that I have like a questionnaire thing, and I'm like, you don't have to answer that question. It's a very big question, but try to go as far as you can. Where do you see yourself, your life? Like for me, I started, like from the end and worked my way backwards of all the things that I wanted to do, and charted that out, and just like kind of a vision board basically, wrote all of those things out. And for me, it wasn't like, okay, now I got to do, I'm like constantly looking at it and like etching it out in the bottom. It wasn't, for me, it wasn't that. It was just like, I just want to like paint on the wall, just throw out all the things that I would love to do in my life, and want to look back on. What is that? What is that? And for me, like, it's something that I look at maybe every couple months. I'll just go back to that list. I'll go back and look at it, and I'm always shocked and surprised that like this is close actually. That if I actually just allow those things to come to me, not instead of trying to force it and hammer it out, it's like if I actually just give it space, it will come. It will come. And trusting that what I put out into the universe will come back to me. Um, and so that was one of the first lessons, from Marcus. And then when I came into the office, he's like, I did not ask you to do all of that. But really, like, like, because I feel like with teachers, it taught me a very good, like, how to be a real teacher in that way, in the sense of, like, I feel like with a lot of teachers, it can be like, this is my agenda for you. You need
Mm-hmm.
to do blah, 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 blah. And my question is always, what do you want to do, and how can I help you along this journey? Um, I, I'm like, I want to word this the right way because I don't want to call anybody out. But there's a student that like was a great trumpet player, great composer, great pianist, and everyone at the school was like, well, you need to choose. You need to be in the lane, either piano or trumpet. And I was like, no. Let's try to figure out, like, can we get him piano lessons as well as trumpet lessons, as well as composition lessons? Let's just figure out a curriculum just for him. And he like broke down in one of the lessons, because I was the only person that asked him what he wanted to do. But I feel like that is, as a teacher, that is the fundamental question for every student. Is like, what do you want to do, and how can I help you along in that journey? So Marcus was, and is a great teacher, great mentor, great friend, even till today. And he's another one that taught me about discipline, and like with him, we would be in rehearsals for hours at FSU. Like we would rehearse till 2 a.m. in the morning, go to Waffle House, then I have to wake up for theory at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Nice.
One of my favorite stories about Marcus is I mean, tell me if I'm talking too much, because
No, go ahead,
Oh, you're
man.
good, man. You're good.
one of my favorite stories with Marcus is when we did this recording. So when we came back to FSU, what year was this? Like 2014, something like that, 2015. It was one of the 7 days thing,
Hmm.
at FSU. So we had a concert, but he used it. He used that week to rehearse us to death, obviously. But then his goal was to record 10 records, in that week. We only got 7, but but that's an amazing feat for like a week to record that many albums. And so it was like the last day we were about to go to soundcheck. Everybody got sick because if we weren't rehearsing, we were teaching, we were recording. It was just like a crazy week, and everybody was sick by the end of the week. And it was right before sound check where he was like, "Hey, I appreciate you all coming down, but like, this is the only opportunity that we have to record like this, and we're still really behind, on these recordings. So I'm just wondering, is everybody okay with like coming back after the concert to record some more?" and no one, everybody was too scared to say anything because it's Marcus Robbins. So, but one of the musicians was like, "Hey, I don't know, like." I think we did everything we could, but then there was like a fortune cookie. We had Chinese food, and there was a fortune cookie, and the fortune cookie said, "We're not here just to survive. We're here to create."
Mm.
We're like, okay, I guess we got our answer.
That's funny.
So we came back after the recording set. After not that, sorry, we came back to record after the concert, and recorded till like 1 o'clock, and like Jason Marsalis missed his 6 o'clock flight, because we were recording till like 1 or 2 in the morning at Les's house. And then definitely definitely another person I have to give a shout out to is Winton, obviously. um and and that still baffles me. And I mean, obviously my relationship with him was through Marcus Roberts, but obviously Winton, is in most people's, including my, like, hero. Like, he is like the reason why I play trumpet the way that I do. For me, my inspirational point was, here's a black man, like, prolifically, like, playing the classical trumpet and jazz. It's like possible to do both at a very, very high level. And to see how he operates in many rooms. I was just telling my roommate that, like, he can be in a room with a bunch of billionaires, talking it up and be able to talk to people on that level. But then he can go to like a low income neighborhood or wherever and play ball with kids and be able to have a conversation with people on that at that level too. Just every level of humanity, like, he's able to speak to and to inspire. Um, yeah, so like for me, my inspirational point with him was, when I came up to New York. I'm still am baffled by how much he loves and supports me. I'm like confused by it. And it scares me, to be quite honest. It's like, because I'm still terrified of him, because he's like such an amazing human being and such an amazing musician, and like, how could I even be in his presence, you know what I mean, type of situation. And so to be loved and supported by someone like him is, is just beautiful for me. And I'm beyond grateful for that relationship. But one of the things that he told me, was that, like, everyone competes for, like, everybody's trying to compete against the other person to be like, oh, I'm the top this, I'm the top that. And it's like the only spot that you're competing for in life is your own spot. Your spot. It does not belong to anyone but you. And the competition is with yourself, not with someone else, Um, and so that, especially first coming up to New York, I felt like I had to, like, to be considered, I have to like be the top player, blah 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 blah. But here's someone like Wynton telling me, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Just do you, be you, you know.
Yeah.
And life will make room for that. You are here for a reason, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's enough people for
No,
that.
that's great. That's great. That's a great
That's
list.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Great lessons too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, speaking of which, talking about New York, what was your transition like from being a student to a full-time musician working in New York City? This kind of goes back to the expectation versus reality. Like, was it
Mhm.
what you expected or drastically different? Or talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, and I'm grateful to like, you know, and I think that that's also my upbringing too. That like, I mean, it comes with its pros and cons. Obviously, we all know, but for me, I'm gratitude is a practice for me, and so always, you know, and it's a difficult balance because it's like if you and I'll get to this, I'll get to answering the question, but for me, it's like if you say yes to everything, then you're depleted and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you want to be grateful for what comes to you, you know? And so in the beginning, for me, it was like yes to everything. Yes, 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 yes. Can you stand on your head and play trumpet? Yes, I can. But I think for me, that kind of humility actually started before graduating. For like, I played with the Disney All American College Band, and that
Mm.
was a moment where I was like, I felt like I was above it. Like I want to be a real serious jazz musician, not dance around at Disneyland. but um, but I ended up having a lot of fun, and I learned a lot about myself and learned about the purpose of making music. But I'll get into that in a little bit. But I like in the beginning I was just like, oh, this is the corporate machine, blah 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 blah, Disney, da 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 da, and at the end, like like with that program, like it was the mantra was like 5 shows a day, 5 days a week, and there would be fans that would come to every show every day for that entire summer. And like if there were people that missed it, they would like find us on Facebook and message us, be like, oh, I'm sorry, I was in traffic, blah 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 blah. And I remember this specific moment that there was a younger kid that was like stuck in a wheelchair, and whenever we came out he would get out of his wheelchair in a little bit and like wave and all that kind of stuff. And towards the end of the summer his mom came to us like in tears, like you can't, that's the only time he comes out of his wheelchair, and I just want to thank y'all for what you do,
Wow.
and I was just like, okay, I will tease it up for anybody. I
Yeah.
will tease it up and like play Disney on my head, dance to like that's the purpose of music, is to uplift people. That's why I'm here at Disneyland. That's why
Mhm.
I'm here playing music, is to if that for that one kid out there, to inspire that one kid out there to uplift people. That's the purpose of music. Music is medicinal. It's healing. It's a healing mechanism. Um, but anyway, I'll go back to graduating was yes, 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 yes to everything. And I mean, and like I said, I'm really grateful to have such a beautiful relationship with Winston, because he was producing a Broadway musical After Midnight, and that was my first gig, like real gig after graduating, and it was like a dream come true. And it was like my inner child, the theater side of myself coming out, like, and seeing, that, oh, I could play jazz and do the theater thing. And like, a lot of people in the cast being around my age, and like, like I was the youngest person in the band, of course, because like in the jazz world, there's the gigs that I was getting were with a lot of older musicians. So here's like dancers and singers and actors, around my age that I can like hang out with and kick it with, what I just definitely did. So Broadway, yeah, the After Midnight show was like the very first gig, but I was like gigging a lot outside of that too. I was like doing a lot of trad, like like trad brunches, blah 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 blah. So and the Broadway show was like 8 shows a week, but in the yeah 8 shows a week. But then I also like on the weekend it would be like I play a brunch gig, then I do the matinee, then after the matinee I do like some like lunch gig or dinner gig really, somewhere at a speakeasy type of thing, and then I do the 8 o'clock Broadway show, and then after that I would do like a Dizzy's like late night show or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and it'd be like, oh my god, like just a bunch of gigs. And then I actually developed a chop issue, and for me, what happened was I had to take time off, like a good month off. And I remember I was in the Broadway show. Greg Ginsberg, great, we all know Greg is amazing trumpet player, amazing lead player, and soloist as well, just amazing human being. But he was like, bro, this is your career. You need to take time off. But I just graduated, so I'm like, no, I'm not
Nope.
taking one day off. But I could squander some of the money at the club later on after the gig. So whatever. Anyway, anyway, he was like, "This is your career. You need to take time off, and you need to change equipment." Because back then I was just playing on big stuff, and but because I wanted my dark, jazz sound, blah blah blah. And he was like, him and Mark Gould were just like, you need to find the most efficient piece of equipment as possible. Then you will develop your sound from there. The sound is here. The sound is here, not in the equipment. Not in the equipment. The equipment is there to be efficient for where you are with your body. So anyway, so I had to take time off and do long tones. And what actually helped me was the Clarke Gordon method of long tones,
Mhm.
which is like, should I be nerding out like this?
Oh,
All right.
go ahead.
Yeah, go for
I
it.
want to know too. I want to know too. Sure.
Anyway, the Clarke Gordon method was just doing a long tone as long as you can, and when you run out, you crescendo, and then however long that was, whatever, 30, 45 a minute, whatever it is, you rest for that amount of time too. So you start from the bottom, not from the bottom, you start from like C and go up as high as you can, then like take a 10-minute break, and then start at C and then go as low as you can. And I had to do that for like a month to like rebuild, my chops and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so after graduating, those are some things that happened. And then one great gig that kind of changed my perspective of music as well was the gig with Alan Stone, soul pop artist, and it was, yeah, it was fun party times, obviously. But the takeaway for me was like, on the stage, he's the son of a pastor, so like he grew up playing worship music and all that kind of stuff. So the reason why I say that is because the functionality of the music, it wasn't like a, for example, like James Brown, the music got to be tight, blah blah blah. So
Right.
it wasn't about the music being perfect. He was like, I don't like, and we would pray before every show, or hold hands and whatever, set our intentions before the show. And he's like, I'm here to like, like, it's not about making every note perfect, it's about like, reaching the people. And like every show he would go out into the audience, hold hands, and all that kind of stuff. Imagine that now, anyway. But
Yeah.
but and we just had fun on stage. I got to sing background, I got to dance, it was, I would be dripping in sweat like after every gig. I had to wear like a tank top because I'd be like dancing so hard and sweating so hard, and it was a lot of fun. And then I got called to audition to be a director for this youth jazz orchestra. And I remember coming back to New York and like seeing the kids, the students, like behind their like stand, just like, okay, blah, blah, here's another jazz rehearsal, blah blah blah. And I was just like, I can't come back to this lifestyle. I cannot. No.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, look, I don't know if you're gonna ever choose me to be the director, but like this is not how we're gonna teach. This is not how we're gonna play music. Music is used, as I said before, used to uplift, used to
Hmm.
heal. Like, I do not want to be a part of the system, because before I would do the same thing. Like in rehearsals or like a gig, I would be like, oh, do we're the drink tickets, okay, like like just clocking in to every gig, just clocking in, clocking out. and not treating it as an opportunity to touch somebody's life, to heal somebody, to uplift somebody.
Mhm.
And after that Alan Stone gig, that was when I really learned that lesson, that if I ever present a show, like it, whatever style of music, even if it's jazz, it's like the person that has no idea what instrument I'm playing, like how can I convince them or change their perspective of music or change their perspective of jazz? Maybe they never heard of jazz before. Whatever. I want to present that music to that person, not like the elitist person that like knows every record, not just that person. You
Yeah.
know, I want to reach the people that don't know anything about this music and hopefully change their lives, you know. We all
Awesome.
have that opportunity. So
Yeah. Wow.
um yeah, I hope that answers some of the
Yeah,
questions you
that was, yeah, very thorough.
had.
So,
Hilarious.
since we're living in interesting times now,
Mhm.
where do you see the music scene heading post COVID, particularly in New York? And do you think things will resume as normal, or will it be changed forever?
I mean, I think yeah, time. Nothing is well. Okay, history repeats itself. Obviously, we know that much.
Mhm,
uh, but I feel like even with this, I mean, we had the Spanish flu 100 years ago. So like,
mhm,
even with this pandemic, this current pandemic, is a repetition of what was happened in the past. But I don't think it's like we go back to normal or we go back to whatever it is. I think it will we will never, like we'll be talking to our grandkids about this,
mhm,
like all of the stuff that has happened to us personally and in the world, like has never happened before, and it's going to forever change our perspective of life, just personally and as a nation, as the world, as a globe of people, as the world, I think we won't ever go back to things as like quote unquote normal. I think it's just we're finding a new path. We're finding a
mhm.
new way forward. Um, and I think it's going to be people more engaged with each other. I think one of the things, at least for me, my takeaways is how grateful like I took those plane flights or whatever the thing is. I took all those things for granted, like all of those times with people or like in a crowd of people or whatever,
Yeah.
like I took those moments for granted, that human connection. And I think, after this pandemic, after the vaccines and all that kind of stuff, we're gonna be a lot more grateful for each other. At least, like, I'm lucky to have like 5 roommates. It's made all of us a lot closer, and a lot more grateful for each other. And we've been, of course, there's moments,
Of
but
course.
because we're stuck together, we're forced to have those hard conversations and to actually move forward. I think before we'd be mad at each other and then like just fly away to whatever gig and never talk about it again. But now we're forced to like talk to each other and have those hard conversations. So as far as like the music scene, I feel like yeah, people are going to be, at least even just my mild, uh, like just playing outside. Not anymore, and we'll talk about that. But like like I would say in the summer, I would busk or play outside with some friends, and seeing how people were like, "Oh my God, music!" Blah 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 blah. So I think people will be like way more invested, are ready to like listen to music, way more engaged to it,
Hmm.
on a personal level. But then also we have the avenue of virtual reality, that like, oh, I don't have to like fly to whatever university to teach. I can teach here, virtually. So there's that avenue too. We have that. Hopefully it doesn't become only that, but we're forced to like learn these new skills. The virtual online skills are just most musicians. Yeah, I got all the recording equipment now, and like yeah, we're doing this podcast. We're like learning new skills, and it's making us smarter and stronger. I do believe that, and I think it's a great reset, a reboot for the planet.
Mm.
I
I like.
know Mother Earth is very grateful. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I like the idea. It's a reboot of
Yeah.
society in some sense, yeah, for better or worse. But I think in some ways, especially musically speaking, it is for the best, because we
I
have
think
all these
definitely.
new avenues, virtual learning and teaching and presenting concerts and master classes that we never really thought about doing prior to being forced to do it. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think that's great. Yeah, I think it is a reboot. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So currently, do you have any goals in place? I mean, it doesn't have to be like music related, but what are some things that you're working on in your life, or things that you are actively trying to seek out?
Hmm. That's okay. That's a loaded question, but
It's all right. We got time. We're good.
apparently, no. For for me, I mean, my goal, I have a lot, but the main one is balance. That is, I'm someone that, as you know, I operate in extremes, and I've had to suffer from it, and I'm really working on how to be balanced in every area of my life. For me, if there's like a project, a thing, I put all my energy into it 110%, and then I get depleted, and then I put my energy into another thing 110%, and to like really understand that like it's okay to say no, it's okay to make time for myself and my wellness and well-being. So for me, back to what I was saying, when I graduated, I was just saying yes to everything, yes, 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 and I, yeah, it's hard for me to say no to gigs, because at this point, gratefully, I would say, yeah, obviously before pandemic, obviously there's no gigs now, but
Right, right.
but before pandemic, I was, I wasn't sleeping enough, I wasn't resting, I wasn't eating well, I was gaining weight, like all this stuff, I was sick a lot, and not taking care of myself, because I was like, yes, 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 yes. And and my body was showing me little signs, and like for me, like it was a year ago, I felt, well, first it was a couple years ago, like sciatica started to settle in every now and then, and then as yeah, a year ago basically, I started to feel this uncomfortable in my knee, um, and then in 2020, I was doing, yoga every day, like, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And then I saw a chiropractor. The chiropractor said I had scoliosis, which is a curvature in the spine, and felt like if he could get me aligned, then maybe that would help with the knee issues. And then, this is ironic that even during the quarantine, I was really busy because I was teaching at Michigan State University, and then and trying to switch over to the virtual thing, and then trying to, finish up whatever gig things, not in person, but it became virtual and all that kind of stuff, doing a million videos and stuff for that. And then I was working for the Louis Armstrong House Museum. I was doing a children's show, um, like educational show thing, but it was a lot of work, and it took weeks to like edit and do the whole thing. And it was the last take of that. It was the last take of the Louis Armstrong thing. I was changing my costume or whatever, and I tripped and fell and fractured my femur. I couldn't move. The ER had to come in and take me, ambulance, sorry, take me to the ER, and I was screaming all night, and the X-ray, and they took an X-ray and an MRI, and it showed that I had, they call it a giant cell tumor. It's like the size of a golf ball, and it eats at the bone.
Mm.
And it broke it. It like ate through my bone and broke it up into eggshell pieces, is what the doctor said. And it started to eat into my muscle tissue, so they had to work really quickly to remove it. Um, and they replaced it with bone graft, cement, plate, and six rods. And And my recovery should have been normal after that, but there was miscommunication with the doctor's office and with physical therapy. I was supposed to see a physical therapist in like 48 hours, but it was like 2 weeks before I saw one. And then that physical therapist wasn't getting the doctor's notes, and didn't know what to do with me, So, and it fast forward to like 4 or 5 weeks later, my leg freezes because if you don't do the right exercises, if you don't move it enough, the scar tissue builds and settles in place. So that's what happened. The scar tissue built and settled in place, and it was frozen, and I can't bend it basically. And I can only at this point after two other surgeries. So there's two other surgeries after that to try to get the range of motion back through removal of that scar tissue, and they said it was more scar tissue than they removed out of any patient they ever had. Uh,
Wow.
because in
Jeez.
my case, apparently I have a defensive immune system, and I just build scar tissue fast. And so, and then yeah, manipulation under anesthesia. So it's like two operations of that.
Hmm.
And in the summer it's at 50. Now it's at like 70, but
Okay.
you need a minimum of 90 degrees to like function normally, to go upstairs and all that kind of stuff, or to run or anything like that. And most people have 130, and I'm like stuck at 70. So right now I'm continuing to see physical therapy every day. And I have like this crazy expensive machine to help bend my knee, and I'm seeing a personal trainer and like a Pilates therapist and all this kind of stuff. But it's it's very ironic, the way that it happened is that like my body waited until I was completely done with all my work. That was like my last obligation for a long time, was the Louis Armstrong thing. And my body waited until then to break down. And then, I'm like asking, praying for balance. I want to be more well. I want to live a more well balanced lifestyle. And like now I'm forced to do
Yeah.
Yeah.
it. I'm like, oh, all of this had to happen for me to learn this lesson.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Right.
I'm an idiot. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. But it's for me it's just like it's funny how life teaches you those lessons. I think like I check out this inspirational speaker, Abraham Hicks, and she's like, when you send desires out to the universe, they come back to you. But if you don't allow it, then there's going to be some confrontation. There's going to be something that happens that forces you to allow that thing to come to so I felt like this was an
This was
example of
it.
that. i
Yeah.
asked i asked for wellness. I asked for well-being, to live a more balanced lifestyle. And yeah.
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 I
I
think
got
this is
what I
what
asked for.
yeah, I think this is what people said, like be very specific when you
Be
pray for
specific about what you
Yeah.
how you ask.
how
Oh
you
my
ask, be very specific.
Yeah.
goodness, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Like this, yeah, whatever. Anyway, so
So finding balance. Wow.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, I
um,
mean, Tyler and I think we did a whole episode about that, and our struggles with finding the balance in our lives with our schedule and all the things that happen. So yeah, I think we definitely feel you, and you kind of being forced. It's forcing your hand. Your body is forcing your hand to
mm-hmm,
find this new balance in your life and being physically and mentally healthy and all those things. So
yeah,
yeah, definitely understand that. But
yeah.
yeah, that's a big challenge you're going through. And correct me. I remember you did a campaign,
Oh,
fundraising campaign for that. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
yeah. No, and I wasn't going to, and it was actually some friends in Florida that, because I'm like, everybody's struggling.
Yeah,
I don't want to put myself out there like that. And my friend was like, if you need the help, like you should ask. Like it's okay to ask for help. I have a hard time receiving, so
yeah,
love and support, and all that stuff, because the way I was raised, like I don't want to ask anyone for anything that I can't do. And like even with my mentors, like Winton, like Marcus would always be like, oh, why don't you should call me more or whatever. And I'm like, I don't want to waste your time. Like, like for me, it's like asking is a last resort for me,
Mm.
that I feel like I should be able to do it all on my own,
Hmm.
and so like really learning the humility in asking and receiving, um, that was one of the big lessons that I got from that. And then also like understanding that there's a community there, like that loves you and wants to support you in whatever direction that you're going. So like, like social media and all of that kind of stuff, I had a different perspective of it, which was like, I'm an artist. Check out my show. Check out who I'm playing with. Blah 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 blah. And I hated that aspect of social media.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, it's gross. I hate that. But then with this, it like really taught me that like, oh, if I'm just honest with where I am in my life, I don't have to present myself every time.
Mhm.
I can just show everybody or share with everyone where I am in my process. There will be people to meet you. There will be people like I haven't talked to in 10, 20 years, to show their support and their love, and how people came out of the woodworks, people I haven't talked to in years, even Winston, like whatever, you know, reached out and shared their love and support and concern. And like I had no idea that that I mean, for me that was the big lesson. It wasn't like, oh, all this money, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, which I'm grateful, beyond grateful for, obviously. But for me, it was the lesson was like, being able to receive that much love, to be able to receive that much support, um, and in a place of weakness. Um, that was what was beautiful to me. That like I didn't have to present myself as put together. I could
Mhm.
present myself or share myself as weak, or not weak, but show myself as in a compromised state, that not in the best condition,
Right.
and people are still going to be there. People
Yeah.
are going to show up more for that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to uplift
Yeah.
me. So that was just a huge life changing moment, you know.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the issues with social media because I think oftentimes social media we try to present the best version of ourselves and sometimes that's not even the actual who we are.
Exactly.
So when we are in tough situations, it's kind of hard to be forthcoming because that platform does not allow us or it makes it hard for us to be honest and authentic because it goes against what in some ways it go against what those platforms are designed to do you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But it's
definitely.
like how you use it. It's a
Yeah.
tool,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So.
So one last question for you. If so you mentioned it earlier, but you spent this past year teaching at Michigan State University for ATN, another FSU alum, while he was on sabbatical. What was that experience like? And is teaching something you enjoyed?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I bet honestly, it's like, okay, I gotta put my words together the right way, because the opportunity was amazing. The gig was amazing. It was another example of saying yes to everything. That
Mhm.
like I did that gig, but I was also so like I was teaching there. I would fly over there and teach for like 3 days, but then I would go join a tour on that Thursday, like throughout the
Mhm.
rest of the week, or go to New York to play some more gigs and then come back. So I had no days off. And like, I was always on the plane, running on like 3, 4 hours of sleep. And it was my first year of teaching. And, as I'm sure
Yeah.
that first year is just crazy.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been back into the school atmosphere since I graduated. So it took a while. A lot of PTSD came back. Like I was like, oh, I didn't resolve this. Okay, this is coming back.
Uh-huh.
um, and the way that it happened was like very like it was like I was confirmed right in August, and because of certain situations, I had to build the curriculum, like
Mhm.
the syllabus as I went, because I didn't have a weekend off to like put together the lesson plans and all that kind of stuff. So it was really really stressful and scary and all that kind of stuff, but um like one I tell everyone I learned more in that 1 year of teaching than I did any of the years going to going to school. All 6 years of school, technically seven. Like I learned more in that 1 year of teaching, because for me I like I think I mentioned it before. It's like I'm very indecisive, but once I commit
Mm-hmm.
myself to something, I want to do the best that I can. And so for me, it wasn't just like clocking in, doing somebody's gig for a year. It was like, oh, how can I invest in like the future of the music industry, of like these kids' future? Basically, they may not go on to do music, but how can I inspire them? How can I meet them where they are? I took that very, very seriously. And for me, it wasn't, because I felt like, at least in my education, it was, you have a professor or a teacher that knows the specific thing, and like they beat it home to you that this is the way to play, and this is the way to approach the music and all that kind of stuff. And I did not want to have that approach with
Mm-hmm.
the students. I wanted to just be an open resource for whatever direction they wanted to go in music, or whatever else it was, not just music, composition, whatever, dancing, theater. Yeah, there was one kid that like amazing musician, but also loved to act. I'm like, okay, cool, let's talk to the drama department, whatever. But showing the whole spectrum, whether or not I had the skills. So like, like if you're into avant-garde or whatever it is, like I don't know much about it, but like let me help you find some resources or whatever. I want to give you the full spectrum of like what the music is, what jazz music is, not just one period of time. I want to show you everything that I can, and from there you choose what direction you want to go
Mm-hmm.
in the music. Yeah, I just sorry, I have to like that's a PTSD thing. So I firmly believe in that, showing the full spectrum of what jazz music is, not just one period of time of it. But in that way though, showing that, I mean, and I'll just explain why I have a little bit of PTSD. Is that like when you go to a lot of jazz schools, it's either very traditionalist, you have to know all the traditional stuff, or it's very like bebop, or like you got to be playing the changes all the time, or it's very like how does, or like, yeah, modern, very modern, like screw all this stuff in the past, we're just gonna do our thing. And they're always in competition with each other, and it's like there wouldn't be one without the other. It's like
Right.
you it's a lineage. It's like this all connection. It's a continuum. Like all of these styles are in support of each other. It's like one of the exercises that I love doing. Well, Leon Anderson would always be like, Beyonce, you could trace her all the way to Pops. You always say that. But it's true. So what I do is with my students, I'm like, okay, name, yeah, someone like Lizzo or whatever. Okay, like inspired by Aretha, inspired by Mahalia, inspired by Bessie and Louis Armstrong, all the way to Buddy Bolden. So it's like, yes, there is a lineage, there is a continuum, and that's the playlist. Like when with every student that I have, um, when they're trying to learn jazz, it's like name somebody like that's alive that you are really inspired by, Winton, whoever it is, and build a tree back to Bolden, basically.
Yeah.
And so that you can see that it's all connected. You are the next point in the lineage. You are a part of the jazz lineage or the musical lineage. And see how you're connected to all of it, not like, oh, I'm only doing this period of it. Sorry, I had to get off.
No, that was great,
That's
I had to
good.
man.
rant. I
Yeah.
had to
That's
rant on
great.
that. But yeah, so I do love teaching, but I do take it seriously. So like for me, um, and I have to give a special shout out to Michigan State, because Michigan State has one of the best jazz schools in the nation. And that I've went to Juilliard, and I will say that that Michigan State is one of the greatest jazz schools, because Rodney Whitaker has built a community. Number one, that's just what it is. It's a community. It's not, oh well, you got to appeal to these like, I mean, there's obviously a code of ethics as far as the music, jazz music or whatever, but like it wasn't like, oh, this is the standard, and if you're not at the standard, we're gonna kick you out or whatever. It was like, this is the standard. We're gonna help you get there and help you grow as a person on the way,
Mm-hmm.
And like he treats everybody like family. Like, I mean, one, obviously for me is like to see a black man as the head, as the director, and to see him like be a great musician touring the world, but then be a great educator, because sometimes it's one or the other. You have like a great touring artist, but like clocks it in and phones it in as a professor, as a teacher, or vice versa. Like you have a great educator, but is not really out here as an artist. And he is a great touring artist, a great artist, one of the world's greatest bass players, but then also a great educator, and then also a great father. And like, his wife is there in the administrative part of the department, and like his kids are always around and participating, and like he treats the whole department like his family. So to see, like, you don't have to phone it in. Like, he's a great father, he's a great educator, and he's a great artist. I learned a lot from that guy. Yeah. But it also showed me that, like, okay, if I'm going to be a professor at a university or at a college, like, it's a commitment,
Mm-hmm.
like getting married.
Yeah, it is.
You have to take it as a priority if you're going to do it right. You have
Mm-hmm.
to take it as a priority, in order to invest in these people's lives. I take that very seriously. Like, I don't know what I could say or not say that completely changes that person's life. So I want to make sure I, treat them with kindness and gratitude, because they're the future. I'm going to be calling them. I'm going to be asking them for help. So yeah, I take it seriously like that. And so for me, I want to make sure I'm ready, because that's a big load.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that I see in my near future, hopefully. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's
Well,
so
thank
cool,
you
man.
very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Sorry, I was
no,
so.
no, that was great. But before we wrap up, Tyler and I like to kind of end our episodes on a fun segment called like, "What are you listening to?" So,
Oh, right. Yeah.
Fonzo, as our guest, I'm gonna let you go first. So, have you been listening to anything? This could be, jazz, classical, R&B, rap, hip hop, like whatever. Or are you been listening to anything recently, or anything on your playlist that you've been jamming to lately?
Well, yeah. So I'm a, yeah. Obviously, well, it's not that eclectic, but I have an eclectic listening list, and also like, sorry, let me know if I'm ranting on too much, but listening, listening is something that I'm trying to learn too, because honestly, after going to so much, through so much school and all that kind of stuff, it's like there is a little bit of PTSD thing with listening. But
Mm-hmm.
um you know finding the inspiration, in the meditative practice of listening, I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting back into. And so, for me, meditation,
Yeah.
listening to mantras and affirmations, even just ocean sounds, starting there. And then as far as like jazz stuff that I'm checking out, I mean, honestly, I love, I love zodiac, astrology and all that stuff. So I've been checking out Marquise's last album,
Mm.
Soul Signs. And I think it's really dope that, an example of these worlds that are seemingly separate, that he's bringing them together, that he's interested in spiritual practices and astrology, and he's a great jazz musician in bringing it together, that like no one's really done that since Mary Lou Williams and
Yeah.
her Zodiac Suite. So yeah, that's what I listen to. Okay, I'll leave it
All right.
there.
Perfect.
That's cool.
What about you, Tyler? What you listening to?
So there's this artist, I guess she's been around for a while, Yeba,
Yeba.
Oh yeah,
Yebba.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I love
Yeah. So I randomly found her, and then kind of went through like down the rabbit hole of seeing all the stuff that she's been doing. But oh yeah, her runs like
Oh yeah, I know,
she'll
I
play.
know, all day. Well, Jasmine Sullivan's last record, I've been checking that out. Yeah. Oh, that's what you're gonna say,
I
my.
was going to say that, man.
Talking about runs, so yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So been checking her out and some of her music, which has been awesome because I don't know. For me, it's like you can kind of get caught in the trap of listening to the same handful
oh
of artists
yeah,
on repeat, and so when you find somebody new, there's like this excitement and joy that comes from it, and so that's been really cool, like a new journey with that. And kind of like what you talked about too is like listening for just pure enjoyment, like
Mhm.
the non-judgmental part of it, just listening and like
Exactly. Yeah.
appreciating what that person has to offer. And yeah, kind of like turn the schooling that you have and the background, this and that, and just turning that off and just appreciation. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Javian.
Well, I mean, Fonz already said it, but
Art,
one
yeah.
so I've been listening to Jasmine Sullivan's new album, and also like she did the Tiny Desk concert. You can
Oh yeah.
find it on YouTube. I think it's her new material that she sings on there. So I love the Tiny Desk concert series because it's all live music and it's just like so authentic, and you can really get a sense of like who the artist is as not just an artist but a person that as the as people, and you can see the humor that they have, especially if they have like their whole band with them, which is normally the case. You can kind of see how they interact with each other. So I've been listening to her stuff this week, as well as I don't know if you guys know PJ Morton.
Of
Oh
course.
yeah.
Oh yeah. So I've been listening to his stuff as
Oh,
well.
oh
He's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
fantastic musician, and
Yeah.
Well, that's
very
great.
artistic.
I'm glad you, yeah, getting introduced to PJ. I love
Oh
PJ.
yeah, he's really good.
I got to see him live at Newport too.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a great
He's
musician.
great. Absolutely. So I want to thank you again, Alfonso, for allowing us to talk with you on this podcast. I still remember being an undergrad at FSU and hearing you play and your dedication to practicing the fundamentals. Honestly, I learned a lot about like how serious you need to be about like the fundamentals of horn, just like watching you practice and your approach and your dedication and just how like serious you were about it. And it was always like really cool. And you're like one of the, I was what 2 years below you. So like seeing this guy who can play jazz really well, who can play classical really well. And so I want to thank you again for joining us on this
Mm.
episode, and so much good things, really like endless things for us to post.
I know,
And
right?
when you joined the meeting, like hearing your laugh again for the first time, like because you were always known for like we knew if Fonzo was around about just that laugh. Oh, Fonzo's somewhere in the building.
On the 10th floor, like.
Yeah, somewhere. Like I can hear that laughter like miles away. Oh, Fonzo's somewhere. Where is it?
It's got good core laugh.
Look forward
He's
to the
within a
sound.
mile. He's a mile away.
So before we wrap up, Afonso, if people want to like follow you, see what you're doing, where can people follow you, or if you have a website or anything like that?
Yeah, it's just alphonsohorn.com. And then my I need to change it, but my Instagram handle is hornswag, HORNE swag. And yeah, I'm on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But
awesome.
no, thank y'all for so much for having me. I as much as you say I inspired you, you too have inspired me. Just seeing your hard work and dedication and all the things that y'all have accomplished. I'm beyond proud for both of y'all. I'm very proud of y'all, and happy to know y'all and to know y'all as friends. Very proud of you. So thank you for
Aw.
Duval. Duval.
that.
That's right.
Oh,
Well, man, we appreciate your time and your energy, and we're so glad that we can put this out and share this with the world. Hopefully people reach out to you if they have questions or want to interact and just to know more about you. And yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Of course, man. Of
Yeah,
course.
and for all the listeners out there, if you guys can continue to follow us at Coffee and Clark's on Instagram and on YouTube, subscribe, give us, a like there, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars, hopefully. And we'll try to continue putting out great content and moving forward from there. So thank you all for listening, and we hope to have new stuff out there pretty soon. See you guys next time.